Welcome to Red in April Off-Grid. We have a lot going on this week. We'll be working on an unusual accent wall that we had a lot of fun with. We'll be installing our cabinet doors, lights and ceiling fans. We'll also be putting in that mahogany bathroom vanity top, and we'll finally be revealing the concrete walls. I'm getting ready to install the cabinet doors here, and first I had to sort through the hinges and hardware, and then we decided to go ahead and reuse and repaint these knobs and pulls. This is a salvage set of cabinets that we had here, and we liked the knobs and pulls fine, but we didn't like the color, so I decided to repurpose these and spray paint them a different color. I sanded these down real quick, and now I'm applying a hammered metal silver spray paint to them. Just one good heavy coat on the back, and then flip them over and do a couple good heavy coats on the front. And back over at the house, April is working on painting the doors for the bathroom vanity and the master closet cabinets. She's painting those a nice almond color and using also a cabinet paint on those as well. So she's just getting started on those, painting the backs. I'm in the background there. I'm working on installing the cabinet doors in the kitchen. I'm working on installing these cabinet doors here, and they came with hidden European style hinges. I really like working with these hinges because they're adjustable. They just have little screws on them that you can use to move in and out and make fine adjustments with to get them fit just right. It takes a lot of the stress on installing these doors out. You know, when you install the traditional style exposed hinge, you have to get the door in exactly the right place when you install it, but these you don't. You just get them close, and then you use the screws to make the fine adjustments. Here you can see me putting in some of those hinges. They actually have a large round part that fits into a recession in the door. I also like the way the European hinges open. They open in a less obtrusive way, and just because of that internal mechanism that they have that allows them to swing open and take up less space. And so they work really well. They're a really nice hinge. I was able to reuse these hinges that came with the doors, even though they're quite old. They were from a really good manufacturer. Blum, I believe, is the name of the manufacturer, and they're still in perfect condition, or at least most of them were. There were a few that were damaged or wore out, and I won't be using those. Fortunately, we had plenty of extra. April's in the guest bathroom working on that vanity. She's painting the face and sides. That paint that she is using there is a nice enamel paint that's made for cabinets, and we got it on the discount section of the store for half price. It actually looked like a gray, which was kind of the general tone that we were going for, but ended up being this nice almond color, which we actually really like. It brings a little bit of brown tones into the bathroom, goes really well with the mahogany top, so it worked out really well. These cabinet doors are going on really fast, and I'm enjoying this process. It's really easy actually, since the holes are still there from the original installation. I'm able to just screw right back into those original holes and then just make some fine adjustments. Of course, since all of the hinges were mixed up, I still do have to adjust the hinges. I suppose if I was using the exact same hinges, I probably wouldn't even have to make any adjustments, but still it's really fast. And then kind of the last finishing touch is to put those little bumper pads on so it closes nice and soft, and I'm all done. I'm moving on to the uppers now, and you will notice that there are a few sides of the cabinets that are still unpainted, and that's because I have those side panels that I'm going to glue on. Those are painted now and just kind of waiting for my attention to glue those in place, and I'll be working on that soon, but haven't got it done yet. I was able to put these up by myself without assistance pretty easily, because when you mount the hinges to the door itself, you can just hold the door with one hand. They're not too heavy, and then use the other hand to start the screw. Once the screw started, I just used a power drill to zip that screw down. It was a pretty easy process. With the doors installed, I was ready to move on to the drawer faces. These were a little bit more involved. There's several screws that hold the drawer face to the drawer, and then a couple of bolts that go through to attach the handles to. So they were a little bit more involved, but still didn't take a real long time, and like I say, I really enjoyed this process. So I'm working on the stack of drawers there now, just getting those drawer faces on and kind of working my way around the kitchen. Once I finish up these drawer faces, the last thing will be to install the sliding shelves. That's one nice feature of these cabinets, is most of them came with really nice sliding shelves to where you open up the doors and then you can slide out a shelf to see what's in instead of having to reach down and dig in there. And almost all of these lowers have that. So that was a nice feature that came with these cabinets.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to us.
Had a really nice birthday celebration with family. There's actually 4 of us that have a birthday within about a month, so we all celebrated together. Back to the cabinets, April has flipped the doors over and she's working on the front faces now. One thing I might mention is there's a section of gray wall over there by the cabinets that we're looking at right now. We decided we don't like it. It doesn't go well with the cabinets, with the color of the cabinets, and so we're going to do something different there. We may paint it white or do something special, but we're not going to leave it gray. I'm using some 1/4-inch plywood pieces that we've painted to cover the sides of these cabinets with, and we're just attaching them with some Gorilla Glue adhesive. And now moving on to a fun little accent wall. We actually found a place to use some scrap material. We had a bunch of little scrap pieces left over from our eaves, some nice tongue and groove board that we thought was nice, but we didn't know what we'd do with it because a lot of the pieces were only like 12-inch long. But we've been looking for a place to use them, and so there was a section of wall in the guest bedroom that April was looking at, and we decided it would be the perfect place to use these leftover pieces. They've just been sitting around outside for several months now, and so they were pretty dirty, needed a little TLC, but it didn't take too much. I just had to wash them down individually, and then I went over them with a fresh coat of Danish oil just to freshen them up, and actually they look brand new. They look really nice. We did have a few longer pieces left over as well, and those will work well above the door. In fact, the piece that I'm working on now, I'm cutting out a notch that'll go down over the very top of the door. It'll make sense here in a second when you see me fit it in place. But right now I'm just cutting out about a 1-inch notch or 1-inch deep notch that'll fit down over the door. Here's my collection of wood. I've got several longer pieces that'll go above the door and a whole bunch of smaller ones that'll go down the sides of the door, and I'm just getting it all loaded up and carrying it over the house and getting ready to install. And here's a look at the wall section in the guest bedroom where I'm going to be installing this. We've left it unsheetrocked because we've been planning to use these pieces here for a while. We're actually doing the sheetrock when April realized that we could fit these in here, and so we left the sheetrock off, and so it's fun to be able to actually get started with this install. I'm starting by installing this first piece above the door, getting it good and level, and attaching it just with some brad nails. I wanted to get it on first and then work up and down from there. I have a limited amount of those long pieces that go across the full span, and it barely fits coming down to this height, so I wanted to start here and go up and down, and I know I'll have enough material. We barely have enough material to do this. We're using up almost every single scrap of this tongue and groove that we had left over from the eaves, which makes me very happy. I just love being able to use up all that scrap material and in such a cool way. I think this is going to be a really neat little accent wall. A lot of these pieces were already exactly the correct length. I mean, these were just the drops that I cut off when I was cutting pieces for the eaves, and most of them are precisely the length that they need to be, so it's awesome how that worked out. A few of them weren't quite right and I had to trim down, but a lot of them fit without any trimming at all. So I'm just working my way down, installing these with the brad nailer. I do put a level on it occasionally to make sure that I maintain my level. It's really easy to get off level if you're not careful. If you'll remember, this wood that we used for the eaves originally was about a 5.5-inch tongue and groove, and we had gone over it with a charred black wood accelerator that treats the wood, kind of artificially accelerates the aging of the wood, and also adds a little bit of black pigment, but it makes this really nice, rich black look that you can still see the wood grain through. And then we covered that originally with paraffin, and then when I went back and cleaned it just now, I went over it again with Danish oil, and it looks brand new. It looks really fresh. And I'm just working my way down the sides here. Man, I love installing tongue and groove. It's just so fun to do. I'm using 2.5-inch brad nails in this nailer, and these are just working out perfect. It has plenty of length to go into the stud and hold these on really securely. They have a really small head, so they're not very visible, and I don't have to use very many. So that's working out really well. I am having to kind of go through the boards and sort through and figure out which one fits where. There are a few that I'm going to have to go trim and come back, but right now I'm just sorting through, finding the ones that I can use and using those and working my way down the wall. And I'm almost done with this side section now. I'm just working on the last couple of feet here, placing these in, making sure they're level, get them all nice and dusted off, and finishing up this part of the installation. I think there may be one or two at the very bottom that I need to come back and do, but now I'm ready to move up to the top. There's just a few boards that I need to put up here that'll get me all the way up to the ceiling. I think there's maybe these 3 boards that I install here, and the last one will be a thin strip that I'm going to have to take back to the house now that I've got some measurements, exact measurements, and cut to size. While I've been working on the accent wall, April has been working on the second coat on these cabinet doors. She is almost done. And I've just finished cutting the top and bottom pieces to size, and I'm trying to fit that top piece in, and this is not going in very well. You know, it's tongue and groove, so you got to fit the tongue into the groove, and it's not fitting in well. You have to roll it in, so I decided to trim some off of one edge so that as I roll it in, that edge that wants to hit the ceiling is gone. So that's what I'm doing, is kind of putting a chamfer just with my pocket knife here, my Leatherman, and I'm just cutting off that one edge so I'll be able to roll it into place. I really struggled with this. It took me a little bit. Well, with that custom whittling complete, I'm ready to make another attempt here. I'm still struggling with this. It is a tight fit, and it's hard to make it snap down into that, tongue and groove joint. But after a fair amount of struggle, I am able to get it in, and I'm pleased with the fit. A couple of brad nails mark the completion up top. I just have a couple pieces down below to finish up now. I've cut these to size as well. These go in nice and easy. Able to just get those lined up and nail those into place as well. Well, that finishes up the tongue and groove install part. Just a few more little minor adjustments here, a few more nails, and I'm all done with that. Well, I'm loving this look. The next thing is to move on to trim. Actually, the inside corner here, the wood fits up close enough to wall that it won't actually require trim. It fits up really nice and tight, and I love the way it's looking. But I will need to trim out around the closet door itself, and so to do that, I'm using this metal trim piece. Now, this is actually an L metal trim that's used for drywall to cover up the edge of drywall. It happens to work out so that it'll be the perfect shape that I need for this, and it's actually not very expensive. Well, this metal is really looking good. I put on the top piece first, and now I'm doing the side pieces. So this metal has an L-shaped profile. It has about ½ inch of thickness on one side, and then about 1 inch of thickness on the other side. The ½ inch thickness side will show from the face of the door. You can actually see it, and it looks real nice with the metal around the frame of that door. Contrasts nicely with the wood. The inside of that 1 inch lip just covers up the side of the wood and will eventually be covered up with another piece of white wood trim. We absolutely love the look of this accent wall. It looks even better in person and adds a lot of character to the room. Well, April has finished painting these doors for the master closet, and I'm getting ready to hang them. I'm just installing those hidden hinges first. They fit right into these sockets and just a couple screws each, and they're installed. Now I'm getting ready to actually mount them on the cabinet. So I'm able to just kind of hold this up by one hand once I get it in place. These hinges actually have a little bit of a lip where they hook onto the face of the door. That kind of holds them in place and allows you to get it aligned with that pre-drilled hole. And then I already have the screw in place on my drill, and I just zip the screw in, and it's held in place and secure. And then I'm able to make those final adjustments to get it closing properly and aligned together. These cabinets really make a nice addition to the master closet. They look really nice in there. They provide some much needed storage, and they utilize some space that was kind of consumed by that plumbing manifold. With the cabinets finished up, I'm ready to move on to some light installations. It'll really be nice to get some of these fixtures installed so that I have some light when I'm working in the evenings and stuff in here. This particular fixture is for the master bathroom, so this will be the light above the vanity. This particular fixture we actually purchased used for very low cost, and love the style. It's kind of a little bit of an Art Deco style and goes great in the bathroom. Nice to finish up some of these little projects. I also installed the bathroom fan cover in the master bath as well. And moving on to the light in the entryway area. This is just a simple pendant light in an industrial style. I've actually installed quite a few lights in my time for whatever reason, and so I'm pretty familiar with this process. It is something that I enjoy doing. It's kind of simple, pleasant work for me, and so I really enjoy installing lights. Our daughter came over to help out for a little while, so her and April are working in the kitchen. I believe they're doing some touch-up painting work on the cabinets. This light is almost installed, just making some of the final electrical connections and reattaching the base. Then I'll put in a bulb real quick and test it to make sure it works. Next up is the ceiling fan in the living room. This is a 56-inch fan. It's a nice, simple style. It's a silver, it's industrial aeronautical style, so it's a 3-blade style, kind of reminiscent of a propeller of an airplane. This ended up being a really nice quality product. Everything in it just seemed really well made from the mount on up. I really enjoyed installing this. We actually didn't pay a lot of money for this, and we purchased it at Walmart of all places. It was a really good value. I'm just finishing up the installation here now, making some of the final connections, and it's hung in place, and it works. We like the look of it. Well, we're finally ready to pull the tape off of these wall sections above the concrete wall and see how this turned out. I'm really curious. I taped all this stuff up and painted, and we've been waiting till everything was done and the time was right to take all this off, but the curiosity is killing me, so I'm finally getting around to doing this. I had originally taped up the wood all around the top frame of this wall and then painted around it, and so now I'm getting ready to remove that tape. But before I do that, I have to get a razor and carefully cut between the tape and the paint, basically to sever the connection between the paint and the tape. Otherwise, when I pull the tape off, I'll rip off chunks of paint. And so I'm carefully doing that, and I got to do it both sides, on either side of the wood. So above and below, so it's a lot of tedious cutting, but man, as I'm peeling this off, I'm really loving the look of this exposed wood. So that's just exposed raw pine that you're seeing there, and it's the subframe that's holding up this concrete wall section. I love the way this looks. It's really going well with that kind of industrial theme that we wanted, and it looks great with the raw concrete, having some of that raw pine exposed. Man, it's just all coming together. Taping these was really a pain because I was trying to seal up the crack, between the drywall and the wood, and between, the wood section and the wall. And I didn't want any cracks left over. So once we peel this paint, I'm getting a good look at how well that's sealed up, and it looks really good. There's no cracks. It's all kind of seamless and goes together well. So I'm really pleased how this is turning out. We originally decided to do these concrete walls for thermal mass, just for the thermal properties. They add great thermal mass to the home, but they also just look awesome. We love the look of these walls, and the interesting thing is that they provide an aesthetic appeal for the living room because they're on either side of the living room, but also for both of the bedrooms because they're one accent wall in each of the bedrooms in the home. And so we kind of got 4 accent walls out of the whole deal, and really all we were going for is for thermal mass. We really love these walls because they were a practical element and started out as a very practical idea, but ended up being a aesthetic highlight of the home. And they were also very low cost, and were able to use some product and some materials that we already had on hand. This was a fairly time-consuming process to remove all of this tape, meticulously, carefully on all 4 of these wall sections, but so totally worth the time. It's just really fun to get it all removed, get the tarp off, and see how it looks. And here's just a few more shots of those completed walls. Here's a look at a light I installed in the guest bathroom, and we've also finished up the vanity, and so here's a look at the completed vanity, including the handles, which we painted black. And now we're moving on to applying the final finish to the solid mahogany vanity top. I've already applied a nice Danish oil to bring out the color to the wood, and let that dry for over a week, and so now I'm ready to apply this final finish. I'm using a water-based polyacrylic. This is a nice finish because it dries quickly in between coats. It dries in about 20 minutes. While I'm doing that, April is sealing up the gap between the cabinets and the wall with some caulk there. She's doing that before her final paint touch-ups. You might notice there's a blank electrical plate there, and it's there because there was a hole there in the original cabinet set. I didn't need it, so I just put a blank plate there to cover the hole. I've let this dry for about an hour, and now I'm applying the second coat. This goes on really fast. Might mention also that I'm using a satin sheen for this. I chose this polyacrylic because it's, first of all, easy to apply, and you don't have to wait long to apply it between coats, but also because it provides a quite durable finish. It's very water resistant, much more so than some other finishes. And so I felt like it was a good choice for a bathroom countertop. We've also used it in our other house, and it worked very well. It's very durable. Here you can see I'm actually moving on to the third coat. I've let it dry the requisite time, and I'm putting on this third and final application and getting ready for the installation. There was just a little bit of prep work that needed to be done before I actually installed the countertop in here. I wanted to go ahead and pre-drill the holes that I'll be using through some of these corner pieces. I'll be using short cabinet screws to make the actual attachment. Actually got the screws all in place and kind of started in the holes, and I'm ready to go ahead and mount the top. Putting it on here, man, I love the look. I did have to do a little bit of shimming and adjustment, not too much, but got it shimmed to where it sets flat and level, and then I'm ready to screw in those screws and it'll be firmly attached. And step back for a satisfied look at the finished product here. It looks good with the light. I like how that's coming along. We have some really exciting stuff coming up. We'll be doing another really neat accent wall, and we're finally at long last getting to those earthen floors, so stay tuned.